My name is Hannah Seymour. The following book talk will discuss 5 fantasy novels. The focused age group is for 11 to 18-year-olds. This usually includes students in grades 6 through 12. According to the text, Essentials of Young Adult Literature, modern fantasy refers to stories written by known authors in which events, setting, or characters are outside the realm of possibility. A fantasy is a story that cannot happen in real life. There are many types of fantasy novels. Some of these include modern folk tales, magical realism, stories of the supernatural, special fantasy situations, historical fantasy, quest adventures, and science fiction. Fantasy novels create a world of wonder, letting our imaginations run wild. Keep watching for information about the following books: The Night Circus, The Kill Order, The Word Changers, Ready Player One, and Don't Be a Hero. The first novel we will discuss is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This novel is magical realism because it appears to be a work of realism with familiar characters and setting, but has an aspect of magic. What would you think if one day a circus would simply appear out of nowhere and it was only open at night? That's what happens in the novel The Night Circus. Here's an excerpt from the novel. The circus arrives without warning. It looks abandoned and empty. It is not open for business, not just yet. Within hours, everyone in town has heard about it. By afternoon, the news has spread several towns over. People marvel at the staggering height of the tallest tents, and the black sign painted in white letters that hangs upon the gate, the one that reads, "Opens at nightfall, closes at dawn." What kind of circus is only open at night, people ask. All over the tent, small lights began to flicker, as though the entirety of the circus is covered in particularly bright fireflies. The waiting crowd quiets as it watches the display of illumination. When the tents are aglow, sparkling against the night sky, the sign appears. Leaning to your left to gain a better view, you see that it reads, "Le Cirque de Rêves." Some in the crowd smile knowingly, while others frown and look at their neighbors. "The Circus of Dreams," comes the reply. Then the iron gates shudder and unlock, seemingly on their own. They swing outward, inviting the crowd inside. Now the circus is open. Now you may enter. Throughout this novel, 2 young magicians are competing in a game, but only one can be left standing. The 2 fall in love, and their love is magical. Strange things begin to happen, even if they so much as touch one another. Everyone's fate is at stake. Read the novel The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern to find out what happens at the end as the game draws to a close. The next novel we will discuss is The Kill Order by James Dashner. This novel is a science fiction novel because it discusses future technologies and scientific concepts while 2 young adults are trying to save the United States. This novel is the 4th book in a series called The Maze Runner. What would you do if a terrible disease were taking over your city, or worse, your country? In this novel, 2 young adults have already survived many trying feats, but will they be able to survive this strange disease that is taking over the eastern part of the United States? Humanity is in trouble because this disease happens to be mutating. They believe that there is a way to save those left from catching this disease, and they are determined to find it. Here's an excerpt from the novel. For Thomas, it was a matter of minutes. He looked like a snapshot of the past, some ordinary boy taking an ordinary nap after a long day at an ordinary school before the sun flares and disease made the world anything but ordinary. Before death and destruction made it easy to steal children, along with their memories, and send them to places as terrifying as the maze. Before human brains were known as the kill zone and needed to be watched and studied, all in the name of science and medicine. The machine began its work, plucking images from Thomas's memory, erasing his mom, his dad, his life, erasing her. Some small parts of her knew that she should be angry, make her scream and yell and refuse to help for one more second. But the calmness was like a drug inside of her. She was at peace. She and Thomas, they had no choice. How could she shrink at sacrificing a few to save the many? How could anyone? She didn't have time for pity or sadness or wishes. It was what it was. What was done was done. What would be, would be. It hurt her to see it, and it scared her to know that she would be next. Even though she knew that he wouldn't hear it, she reached out and spoke to him inside her mind. We're doing the right thing, Thomas. See you on the other side. The men leaned over and lowered Thomas by the arms as far down as they could. They dropped him the rest of the way. Teresa heard the thump of his body crumpling into the cold steel of the floor inside. Her best friend. She turned around and walked away. From behind her came the distant sound of metal sliding against metal, then a loud, echoing boom as the doors of the box slammed shut, sealing Thomas's fate, whatever that might be. To find out if these trying adults are able to save the United States, finish reading The Kill Order by James Dashner. The third novel we will discuss is called The Word Changers by Ashley Willis. This is a quest adventure because it talks about an imaginary otherworld, and the character finds herself trying to determine the fate of a lost princess as well as herself. Have you ever gotten so wrapped up in a book that it seemed to take over your entire being? This is what happened to 15-year-old Posey. Her home life isn't so great, so she reads as her pastime. While reading a fairy tale, the words begin to devour her, and she is sent on a quest to find the lost princess. Here is an excerpt from this novel. And the entire time she was falling, she could hear voices, hollow and wide-flung, pulling her back from the precipice. Posey lifted a heavy hand and swatted awkwardly at her face. You've come at last, my dear, said the voice near her, and about time, too. Posey attempted to open her eyes, only to find it difficult. A woman's voice came faintly from a distance. Will it work? Well, their looks are quite different, I must say. Now a man's deep tones. Solid arms went around her, pulling her to a sitting position. There we go, my dear, said a man's voice next to her ear. What a scare we had, didn't we, Valinor? We thought we were going to lose our princess. There was no doubt about it now. Someone was calling her princess. Posey's eyes snapped open at last. What she saw almost convinced her that she was dreaming, if everything hadn't been so real and so unbearably bright. She had not seen a place like this before. What had she been doing before all of this happened? Why couldn't she remember? At last her eyes alighted on the stone windowsill. On it sat a great gray owl, at least twice the size of an owl ought to be, sitting with his feathered chest thrust forward, a self-satisfied expression on his face. Surely, she thought to herself, surely the owl didn't just... But even as she doubted it, the creature spoke again. But now, here you are, he said, soothingly, as if he were calming a distressed child, and we all rejoice that you are restored to us. Posey begins to uncover a dangerous and deadly secret while searching, and she discovers that she has uncovered the darkest one of all. After many attempts to rescue this princess, Posey realizes that this is the least of her concerns. To find out how this novel ends, and if Posey rewrites her own story as well as the fairy tale she was reading, read the novel The Word Changers by Ashley Willis. The fourth novel that we will discuss is called Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is a science fiction dystopian novel because it discusses the future and everyone that's being entranced by a video game and they're going so far as to kill for it. Have you ever been so absorbed in a video game that the outside world simply became part of the gaming world? Well, this is what happens in the novel Ready Player One. Here's an excerpt from that novel. Everyone my age remembers where they were and what they were doing when they first heard about the contest. I was sitting in my hideout watching cartoons when the news bulletin broke in on my news feed announcing that James Holliday had died during the night. He had died a 67-year-old bachelor with no living relatives and by most accounts without a single friend. So the real jaw-dropping news concerning everyone was the contents of Holliday's last will and testament and the fate of his vast fortune. Holliday had prepared a short video message along with instructions that it be released to the world media at the time of his death. He'd also arranged to have a copy of the video emailed to every single Oasis user that same morning. Before I died, Anorak says, speaking in a much deeper voice, I created my own Easter egg and I hid it somewhere inside my most popular video game, the Oasis. The first person to find my Easter egg will inherit my entire fortune. But don't worry, I have left a few clues lying around to get everyone started. And here's the first one. 3 hidden keys open the secret gates, wherein the errant will be tested for worthy traits, and those with the skill to survive these straits will reach the end where the prize awaits. I couldn't playtest this particular game, so I worry that I may have hidden the Easter egg a little too well. Maybe it is too difficult to reach. I'm not sure. If that's the case, it's too late to change anything now, so I guess we'll have to see. So without further ado, Anorak announces, let the hunt for Holiday's egg begin. Then the screen fades to black. An icon died, leaving his fortune to whoever can unlock the levels, find the hidden Easter egg, and win the game. This large amount of money has everyone playing the game. When Wade unlocks the first clue, he finds everyone ready to kill for the prize. Wade must win to save himself. To find out if he is able to win the game and collect the fortune, finish reading the book Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. The final novel to be discussed is Don't Be a Hero by Chris Strange. This is a science fiction novel because it shows humans being aware of technologies and scientific concepts not yet used by man. Do you ever wish that you had superpowers? Well, these humans do. In the novel Don't Be a Hero, Spook must risk everyone to save the world. A super criminal is trying to take over all the power, and this is just unacceptable. Here's an excerpt from the novel. Yes, those were the days, he said, watching the compound slide slowly closer. The days when a hero knew who he was, what he stood for, where men and women all across the world could go about their business without fear. He was close enough to see how young these soldiers were, and then he was amongst them. He leaped, slamming his shield of light into one and kicking the rifle out of another's hand. With another switch of energy, the light changed shape again. A sword bloomed into life in his hand, a sword with an edge the size of an electron. This is a war coming full force. Read the novel Don't Be a Hero to see which side of power wins, and the superheroes are the super criminals. This is the end of my book talk. I hope that you found at least one novel that you found interesting and to read. Thank you for watching.